Really appreciate it, especially coming off your announcement yesterday. I know that there are several media members here who have some questions for you. So we'll go ahead and get started with those questions, Aric, in the time that we have with you. So thank you again for joining us. To kick us off, we're going to start with Bob Pockris. Bob, go ahead with your question for Aric.
Yeah, Aric, as you were going through this decision, how long did it take, and was it a pretty obvious decision for you?
No, it was not a very obvious decision. I've talked about this quite a bit yesterday after announcing it, but for the last several years, I've thought about just when is the end, right? I've not thought about actually retiring in any of those years, but I have thought about when will it end? And I thought about it in the past when I broke my back in 2017 at Kansas, and at the end that was the last year on my contract that year at Petty's. And I thought that could potentially be the end. And so I've had multiple opportunities to think about what will that look like when my career is over? And fortunately, and timing and God's will and all the things have played out to give me the opportunities to prolong my career to this point. But yeah, it's hard to make that decision to walk away from something you love. I love to compete. I love to drive race cars. It's financially very rewarding. All of those things, that's hard to walk away from. But I've got a family too, and I had to really consider that. And as I watch my kids grow up and get older, they want to get involved in their own activities. My son is really into team sports, and my daughter is into horseback riding and theater and dance, and those things happen on the weekends. They might have practice during the week, but their performances and their games are on the weekends. And I couldn't keep going week in and week out chasing my dreams and watching them do their thing through text message videos and FaceTime. I just felt super guilty about it. And my wife and I have talked a lot about it, and we've prayed about it. And we just feel like now's the right time. Like I said in my video that I put out, next year I'm going to have a 10-year-old and 9-year-old. I've got a short window to spend as much time as I possibly can with them before they have car keys, and they're asking me what time their curfew is. And it's going to feel like I'm punishing them to ask them to be home to hang out and spend time with mom and dad. So that weighed into my decision more than anything else, is just that small window of opportunity I have to be with my family while my kids are still young and they still want to be home and hang out because dad's still kind of cool right now.
And you're not in Daytona, so are you concerned at all about not being here, testing, and being behind come the 5?
No. Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's important to be prepared. And right now, with the way the industry is and limited supply of cars and chassis and parts and components and all those things, I think it's more important to be prepared for the season. And our organization thinks that as well.
Okay, our next question is going to come from Jordan Bianchi. Go ahead, Jordan.
Hey, Aric, appreciate the time. When did you inform Stewart Haas Racing of your decision?
I talked to him about it over the holidays. Talked with Brett and Zippy, and I spoke with people at Smithfield as well, and just told them that I've talked about it with my wife and talked about it with my family, and that as excited as I am about 2022, when the checker flag flies at Phoenix, that'll be it for me. And I felt like it was important, once I kind of came to that conclusion that this was going to be it for me, I felt like it was important to get ahead of it with the race team and with Smithfield and with all of our corporate partners, because I feel like it's fair to them to have the longest runway possible to figure out what's next. and to try and get their ducks in a row and try and plan accordingly. So I would want that same respect if I was running a race team or an organization. And so I felt like they deserved that.
And what's next for you? I mean, you talked about the family component and everything, but in terms of staying in the motorsports within NASCAR, is that something you're interested in behind the scenes or any capacity at all?
Yeah, I do. I do have interest in still being involved. I really don't have an answer on what's next. And I know that's crazy and a little bit scary. But I'm not going to sit at home in my pajamas, and I'm not going to play golf every day. I am stepping away from full-time racing, but I'm only 38 years old. I still feel like I have a lot left to do in life, and I feel like I'm still plenty young to reinvent myself. All I've ever done is drive race cars. I became a professional race car driver at 19 years old. I raced as a hobby before that. And so, yeah, I don't have a plan B. I've never had a plan B, and I don't know what that looks like currently. But I do have a lot of interest in a lot of different things. And I feel like, again, getting out in front of it early and announcing that this is going to be my last year of full-time racing, I feel like that's going to present a lot of opportunity for me to have real candid conversations with different people and different organizations on what opportunities might lie ahead for me post driving and racing. And so, yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. But I know that going 40 weeks a year and all the stresses and demands that come along with being a race car driver, that is coming to an end for me.
Last question for me. You say full-time, you're done being full-time race car driver. Does that mean you're open to doing a one-off or a part-time schedule, whether it's in Cup, Xfinity, or whatever?
Yeah, I don't want to say that I'll never race ever again. I'm not retiring from racing. I'm just retiring from full-time racing. And so, yeah, if there was an opportunity to go do something here and there, I will look at the opportunity. But yeah, I'm not interested past 2022 of ever going on a full-time schedule again. I want to be around on the weekends. I want to go to the baseball park with my kids, and I want to have have a few of my son's buddies come over and have a sleepover, and I want to be grilling out by the pool and let them have a pool party or whatever. Like all the things that I got to do as a kid because my parents were involved in my life. My parents made so many sacrifices to make sure that I had an awesome childhood, and I played every sport that I could possibly play. I raced go-karts. I did so many things. I had so many opportunities because of my parents and my grandparents' willingness to sacrifice, their lives, and they worked in had normal jobs, but they were home on the weekends. And I want that for my kids. I've been blessed beyond my wildest imagination to do what I've done over the last 11 years, Cup racing. But yeah, I'm ready to be a little bit more normal, and I'm ready to be home with my family.
Okay, our next question will come from Scott. Go ahead, Scott.
Hey, Aric. I know it's impossible to anticipate what the feelings are going to be like once you enter retirement, but as you've thought through this, is there a particular race or an aspect of the sport that you anticipate you'll miss the most?
Yeah, I already know what that is. I will miss strapping into the race car on pit road and, the guys putting the window net up and me firing the engine up and rolling off pit road. There's nothing that I've ever experienced that is as exciting as that. When you roll off pit road to start any race, like it is awesome. Like you feel like you're a gladiator getting ready to go do battle. And that feeling is not going to be easily replaced, if at all. And so I think I will miss that. I know I will miss that more than anything else. Just that excitement of going out to compete and to go drive my race car against 39 of the other best stock car drivers in the world.
Because you've mentioned kind of all the moments that you have missed out on, and is there like a particular moment where you were just like it kind of forced you to really think long and hard about what direction you were going?
No, I think it's a compilation of multiple decisions, especially revolving around the kids. For the last probably 3 or 4 years, when looking at team sports for Alex, my son, and even looking at whatever hobbies my daughters wanted to be involved in. When we look at those, we've had to weigh out, like, what does that schedule look like, and how many games are on what weekends, and what does your practice schedule look like? And the reason we've had to look at all those things is we've had to look and see how it lines up with my schedule. And we've had to tell, like my son, we've had to say, like, that's fine, you can play spring baseball, but if you play spring baseball, you're probably not going to be able to go to Bristol. You can't go to Talladega. You're probably going to miss these certain races that are favorites of theirs and favorites of our families, that we enjoy going to the racetrack together as a family, and that our family would sacrifice that time together because they wanted to play an activity or sport, and that I was still racing. And so year after year of looking at that and trying to juggle their schedules with what they're trying to do with my schedule, and my schedule always wins. And it has to, right? It's my job. It's my livelihood. It's the way I provide for our family. But it's finally reached a point now to where it's like, all right, if we don't let them start doing these things, it's going to be too late, right? They're going to be teenagers, and they're going to be behind, and they're not going to get those opportunities to all of a sudden start playing baseball in high school, right? So we just, after a lot of thought and a lot of year after year of making these conscious decisions of either delaying them from doing what they want to do, or doing it and then just juggling the schedule, it just feels like the right time.
What's their reaction been? That's my last question.
They're excited. They really are. I think they don't really know. They're still young and innocent and immature, and don't really have the world completely figured out. So they just know that by daddy retiring, that means I'm going to be home more, means I'm not going to, be gone every single weekend. And they're excited about that. They're happy to know that at the end of this year, dad's going to be, around and more available.
All right, we're going to continue with questions. Our next question is going to come from, let's see, Holly Kane. Did you have a question?
Hey, no, actually he answered it. Thank you.
Oh, perfect. No problem, Holly. Our next question is going to come from Evan. Evan, go ahead with your question for Aric.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, has this made you a little bit reminiscent about your days growing up and falling in love with the sport? And just what has the Tampa area meant to you as, catapulting your career into what it is today?
Yes, I'll answer the first part first. Yes, it has made me reminiscent of just my love for the sport, my love for racing. And I felt like I talked about it in the video that we put out on YouTube, is that I fell in love with the sport sitting in the grandstands as a fan, as I'm sure most every other race car driver did, right? And I watched my grandfather race, and he was wildly successful on a local level. And I loved it. I loved being at the racetrack. And then I got the opportunity to get in a go-kart and feel what that felt like. When I was sitting in the grandstands, I could just dream about it and imagine like how awesome it must be to drive a race car and go as fast as you possibly can. But then I got to experience it, and I fell even more in love with racing, and just the pureness of it as a kid is so cool. Like, I'm doing it for a hobby. I'm doing it because I love it. and there's no real pressure at all. Like when I was go-kart racing, the only goal was to do as best as I could and to learn and to get better each and every time I went back to the racetrack. And I eventually was fortunate enough to take a hobby and turn it into a profession. And so, yeah, I am super grateful for what racing has meant to me and where it's taken me in my life, both professionally and personally. And yeah, I have reminisced quite a bit about it, knowing that, this year will be it.
And then last question for me is also just, I know you talked about what you're going to miss the most, but as far as that reminiscing process, just what is your favorite accomplishment that you've done throughout your career?
Oh man. I think, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I think now really thinking about just what it takes to be a race car driver and all those things. I am most proud of the relationships that I've made with corporate sponsors. Driving is one part of it, and we all are really talented race car drivers, and sure, some are more talented than others. And would I have loved to have more success on the racetrack? Absolutely. I feel like I've done as good as I possibly can. I've had great opportunities, and I'm excited to go and achieve some more things in 2022 before I call it quits. But the one thing that will last far beyond me driving a race car is the relationships, the people that I've had impact me in my life and that I've had an impact in their life. And that is the thing that I'm most proud of. I know it sounds corny, and I know people kind of say that all the time about like retiring and that, they'll miss the people more than anything else. But for me, it's true. I've built some incredible personal relationships with a lot of great people along my journey, and I'm most happy about that.
Okay, our next question is going to come from Rob. Go ahead with your question.
Hey there, congratulations on your next steps in racing. But first of all, I know you got a big season ahead, so just a couple of questions from me. You were one of the first faces of NASCAR diversity programs. So what does it mean to you to lead that effort as one of the first minorities to succeed in NASCAR?
Yeah, that means a lot to me. And I've never really viewed it that way, even from the beginning. Like when I first got the opportunity to go to Joe Gibbs Racing with Reggie White and that diversity program, I viewed that as an opportunity that I was very grateful for, but I never viewed myself that way. Like I just viewed myself as a race car driver that just so happens to have a dad that's from Cuba, that allowed me to get that opportunity, that I'm a first generation born Cuban American. And so I've never really thought of myself as a quote unquote diversity or Cuban race car driver that, needed to wave that flag or anything. I've just viewed myself as a race car driver, and I happen to have olive complexion and dark hair and dark eyes, and have a bloodline from Cuba. And so, yeah, I'm super happy and grateful for the opportunities that it has brought to me, and I am extremely proud when I think about that of what my family has done. I don't feel like it's as much about what I've done. It's way more about what my family's done, and we documented that a lot through one of the short story films that we did about me going back to Cuba and kind of tracing my roots when I was driving for Richard Petty Motorsports. In that, I am incredibly humbled to see where my family's come from. I mean, literally hundreds of miles, or not hundreds, but 100 miles of dirt road out in Pinar del Rio, Cuba, with nothing. I mean, nothing. And to come to this country and completely start over, like they gave all of their personal possessions back to the Cuban government in the 60s and started over. My grandparents came here with my dad and my uncle. And when they arrived in Miami, they got $100 from the American government and a pat on the back that said good luck. And they have created a great life for themselves and for their family, and that I get to reap those benefits because of what they've done. So yeah, I never view it as something that I've done. I view it way more as what they've done, and I'm just a lucky bystander.
It sounds like you've lived the American dream, which is so inspiring to hear. My other question for you is, I know a lot of folks have asked, like, what's your favorite memory and all of that, but what would you hope is your legacy once you hang up the helmet for full-time racing? Like, how would you want folks like me, journalists like me, to remember you?
Just that I'm a genuine person. That character, and I've learned this from my family, really, mostly. But character is really what it's all about. Like achieving success and making your way to the top by stepping on other people or trampling other people is not nearly as rewarding, I don't think, than versus making it the right way and making it on values and character and building relationships and being genuine relationships and being who you are. And that is one thing that I've tried to do from day one. Like, I've never tried to get ahead of myself, and I've never tried to think that I'm better than I really am, or to think that just because I make good money and I drive a race car for a living that I am above the guy cleaning the bathroom at Darlington or the journalist writing stories or any of those things. I've just always tried to be humble and tried to be genuine, and I think that I would much rather leave that legacy than to leave any other legacy about me as a race car driver, if it meant that my character wasn't what it was.
Certainly. Well, best of luck this season. And they're really miss seeing you on the racetrack for sure.
All right. Our next question is going to come from Taryn Wack. Go ahead, Taryn.
Hi, Aric. Just a quick one from me. You mentioned how you want your kids to experience different sports and hobbies. Have either expressed an interest in racing?
Yes, they both have. And for right now, it's just dabbling. Like my son has a go-kart, and we go practice and run around, but he hasn't really switched it on to take it seriously. He takes stick and ball sports way more seriously. He's way more competitive at stick and ball sports. And then the same for my daughter. My daughter has gone out to the go-kart track and drove and made laps, but doesn't really express an interest in wanting to do it competitively. But you stick her up on top of a horse, or you put her out on a theater stage, and she just lights up and she shines and she loves it, and she puts in a lot of work. So yeah, I think they've expressed interest in racing just because, like, it's what I do, and our families, that's all they've ever really known, to be honest. Mm-hmm. But yeah, as they grow and they get older and they start to experience other things, it's fun to watch what really triggers, their excitement.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and we're going to take one final question here this afternoon, and Nathan, we'll go with your question next.
Hey, Aric, appreciate the time today. You touched on it a little bit earlier, but how much will your kids miss being at the track, and what would it mean to you for your kids to see you win one more time?
I think it'd be huge. for my kids to get to participate in me going to victory lane one more time, especially because they weren't at New Hampshire last year. We were getting ready to leave on vacation that next day when I got home from New Hampshire. We were going to Key West, so they didn't go. So that way Janice could have all of our bags and everything packed up. And so that was hugely disappointing for them. Obviously, they were excited and jumping up and down on the couch that we won, but they didn't get to be there to be a part of it. So I would love for them to have that opportunity to go to victory lane one more time before we hang it up.
Thank you.
All right, Aric, that appears to be all the questions. So thank you again for spending a solid 30 minutes with us this afternoon. We really appreciate it.